Hey, everybody, this is Craig Garber. Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar. Man, I've got such a special guest today. It's an honor and a privilege to have Joe Bataan, Mr. New York, one of the founding fathers of Latin soul, super cool guy. It's an interesting story. A couple of quick announcements. I want to thank our mutual friend and my high school buddy, Joe Rivera, for hooking us up. Joe, thank you very much. Also, make sure you go to everyonelovesguitar.com/subscribe to subscribe to the show. If you're watching us on YouTube, hit the subscribe button and that little emoji that looks like a bell. That helps us get recommended by YouTube. And thanks a bunch for your support. I want to tell you about Joe Bataan, and we'll get into it. He's got a great story. He's an awesome guy, incredibly successful. And like I said, one of the founding fathers of Latin soul. I got turned on to Joe. I was watching, there's a great documentary out there called By Whatever Means Necessary, which is really about the history of music and culture in Harlem, pretty much from the 50s on up. And Joe grew up in East Harlem, and I was just so impressed with his story and his hustle and the effort that he put into himself and his life that to change this direction where he was going, you know, to rise up from a difficult situation to becoming recognized as one of the founding fathers of Latin soul music. And that's a very difficult thing to do, to change the course of your life, man, and let alone become successful beyond your wildest imagination. He's got an amazing voice, incredibly soulful and moving. If you're not familiar with his music, just check out I Wish You Love from his St. Latin's Day Massacre album. And, you know, you'll be listening to it when you're getting down with, you know, your significant other. This guy's got a beautiful voice, incredibly well respected in the Latin music scene. In 1973, he helped coin the phrase South Soul, and he also co-founded the South Soul record label. Between 67 and 81, Joe released 13 albums. His 68 album called Riot went gold. His 1975 hit The Bottle from his album Afro Filipino, which is a great record, went to #5 on the Billboard charts. And he's since released another 6 albums from 1997 to today. Man, if you just want to take a quick look at Joe, go on YouTube and search Gypsy Woman in Central Park. Unless you're dead, it's going to be impossible to not want to turn that thing up and move, man. It's just, his energy is awesome, and he's a super talented guy. And thanks so much for your time, and thanks for coming on the show, Joe.
Oh, thank you. It's a pleasure.
No, go ahead.
Yeah. No, when Joe called me, of course, our mutual friend, I was excited because, you know, for a long time, I've never been able to infiltrate Florida. And I was just down there for a jazz concert 2 years ago. And I said, gee, traveling all over the world, but for some reason, the message hasn't gotten down south to Florida. And then when you came out and told me that you're stationed there, I said, oh, it's a great opportunity for me.
Oh, very cool. See, you put it out into the universe and there it comes, right? That's how it happens sometimes.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, you grew up on 103rd Street in Lexington, which was basically Spanish Harlem at that time. In your teenage years, you started getting in some trouble, and then you wound up being the leader of the Dragons, which was a neighborhood gang. And I apologize, some of these early questions are stuff you've been asked 1,000 times.
Yeah, it's okay.
How did you get involved with those guys? How did that whole thing start?
Well, you know, it didn't start off that way. I mean, actually, I was how would you say, an early Christian. You know, we used to go to church. All the kids, matter of fact, everybody in the neighborhood at that time, we all belonged to the same church, St. Cecilia's. So it wasn't until one day I had met a young lady. We were teenagers, and I went up to her neighborhood, which at that time was a rival turf for gangs at that time. And I caught myself there with her. We were talking, and all of a sudden, I was surrounded by 25 guys. They had bats, clubs, and all kinds of things. You know, I had no inkling of ever being in a gang. I didn't even know what a gang was. They told me that I carry a shank, which is a knife, and I never carried a knife, you know. So they surrounded me and said, well, who's this guy? And ironically, this young lady went to my defense. You know, she had some kind of girl. I remember her name was Jenny. And she says, he's not involved in none of that stuff. Leave him alone. And all I could think that was going through my head was, wow, these guys are going to kick my butt, man. You know, I said, the thing I thought about is see if you can run, but there was no place to run. And then finally she convinced them that I had nothing to do with their rivalry, and they walked away.
Wow.
Nevertheless, when I got back to the neighborhood, I discussed this with an old friend in my part of the section of East Harlem. And he said, well, Joe, you don't have to go through that. Of course, for those that don't know, Joe is really not my name. Bataan is my first name. And he said, hey, Bataan, you don't have to go through that, you know? He says, I said, what do you mean? He says, we got guys over here, man, you know, that belong to a group, and you could join them. I said, yeah. He said, yeah, come on. So he introduced me. The next thing I knew, I was in the Dragons. We were called the Young Tims at that time. And the guys were asking me, this guy don't look like he's down, or he can take care of himself. You know, he's dressed too sharp. I mean, you know, that's how they spoke at that time.
Yeah.
And of course, I was appalled at how they were describing me, and I was out to prove myself. And the next thing I knew, I was called to go down in a battle, which at that time was a bunch of neighborhood kids from the opposite part of the neighborhood, and there were about 25 with chains, knives. They had a zip gun. Oh. We met them with about 15 in this block on 106th Street, across the street from the church. And I kept thinking to myself, oh, this has got to be a joke. This is not really real. Until I saw them advancing towards us, and we would back up, and then they would back, just like a Hollywood movie. And then I said, this still is not real. It didn't dawn on me what was really going on until somebody got hit with a chain, and I heard a shot.
Holy.
And the next thing I knew, one of my friends that was in the gang with me, he had got shot in the foot. And we went to help him. He said, get out of here. Don't, get out of here. So everybody dispersed, we ran. And that was the beginning of my jailhouse gang days. Eventually, we got into a lot of tuffles throughout the years. And eventually I ended up the leader of the gang. But the funny part of it is that everybody left the gang when I became the president. I think I was the president of two guys. Everybody in the neighborhood fell out of favor with me. They thought I was too arrogant, because I always try to settle everything with my hands. And of course, that got me into a lot of trouble. But for some reason, I wouldn't succumb to their jealousy or whatever it was that they had a dislike for me at that time. And I went on. Eventually I got into trouble, and I ended up in the reformatory.
Let me ask you this. The Dragons were primarily like a Puerto Rican gang, but you're not Puerto Rican. Your dad's Filipino. Your mom's African-American. So like, how did you obviously did a really good job assimilating. And back then, you're a little bit older than me, but I'm from the city. Back then it wasn't so easy. Right. So what?
I got asked that question by Felipe Luciano. He said, hey, how come you were the Puerto Rican gang and you're a Filipino, Afro-Filipino? I said, look, growing up in the neighborhood, you couldn't tell anybody that I wasn't Puerto Rican or Latino. I had to learn the language in the streets, or else you couldn't play with your neighbors. Right. So I learned the curse words first, and then everything else followed. We played ball games. We got into arguments in the street. So all of that jargon fitted into my lifestyle. I went out with Latinas, girls, and my wife is Puerto Rican.
Right.
And eventually, it was taken for granted that I was Puerto Rican. I never said otherwise until later on, when I was looking for my own identity. Right. Because at that time, believe it or not, there wasn't that amount of racism as we see it today.
Yeah.
We hanged out with Japanese kids, Jewish kids, Japanese, Puerto Ricans, blacks. I mean, whatever. We had a fight. We settled it with our hands, and that was it. We came back out the next day. We were friends.
Right.
It was none of that grudge thing. Only the gangs did that. But in between that, with your friends and your neighborhood, everybody knew everybody.
Right.
And most of our childhood growing up was done in the streets.
Right.
We didn't have, we had TVs, but it was very early stages of television. Radio was our pastime.
Sure.
And that's how I got to learn music. And the music was in my blood, and it was in everybody's blood in East Harlem.
Yeah, man. So at some point in time, you get into trouble and you wind up serving 5 years in prison for stealing a car, which is amazing. 5 years for stealing a car. Holy crap. Think about that today, right? They'd be thanking you that you're not shooting somebody.
No. Well, actually, it was a little more than that, but it wasn't anything drastic. I got caught for robbery, right?
Oh,
But
okay.
nothing drastic. I think it was $5.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and the car, we had got into it, and some of the guys in the neighborhood said, because we were very reckless at that time, said, "Joe, we got a car." I said, what do you mean? It's parked over here. Come on, let's go see it. We ran over, and I said, "Well, how do you start?" He says, and at that time it was 1959. I'll never forget. It was push button cars. All you had to do is push a button. You didn't have to use a key.
Really?
I think you use a key, but if you wanted to drive, you press drive. And I got in and I started pressing the buttons. And what it did was it started backing up into the cars, hitting them and backing up front. And before I knew it, I couldn't get out of the parking lot. There was a housing officer with a gun in my face. And he said, so the first thing that comes to your mind, of course, we all were fast talkers back then. I said, look, I didn't steal this car, which I really didn't, but it was in there, you know?
Right.
And he said, yeah, well, get out. You tell me another story. And I said, well, let me explain. I said, you know, and he wouldn't take my word for it or anything. And the next thing, he led me down into a pattyway downstairs in the project. And while I was discussing everything, my friends came back. It's all right, funny. And they took the car, right? The evidence. So we came back out. He said, where's the car? I said, I told you I didn't steal any car. What car are you talking about? I mean, when you think about it now, it's whimsical, but at that time it wasn't.
Yeah.
And they had taken the car. And of course, there was no evidence, but of course, that didn't help me. They charged me anyway. So, of course, you know, the car's grand loss. And I think I got into trouble one more time. So what it was, I had 3 cases going to court. I was holding on to my rosary, never thinking that I would be sent away. My mother washed floors. She did any kind of menial work, and how we survived. And we got a lawyer who had promised to get me off, but it didn't come to pass. The next thing I knew, I was before the judge, and the judge said, what do you have to say? So, Your Honor, this young man, he dresses very well. He always has money in his pocket, and he's going to school back. He's gotten back, and the judge said, save your breath. He's a bum. And I'm sending him away. I'm sending him away so he'll learn something. And, you know, it was the best move. I mean, when I think back at it now, I went through that hallway, and when he said an indefinite period of 5 years, my heart dropped to the floor. Can you imagine a 16-year-old hearing that you're going to be gone, you're 5 years taken out of your life? All kinds of things happen. I thought about my girlfriend. I thought about my mother, my parents, my friends I wouldn't see anymore. It was a life changer. And yet, when I walked through that hallway and I spoke to the guard, I said, look, what does that mean? He said, oh, depends on your behavior when you will be released. I said, well, you mean I can get out in 3 months? He said, yeah, you're good. Of course, that wasn't realistic at all, you know. I think I did 21 months before I was paroled. And when I was in there, I made a life decision. I said, while I'm here, I'm going to pretend that I'm in college, right? I mean, I had dropped out of school. Just before that, Mr. Goldberg, I had gotten kicked out of Commerce High School, and Priest had got me into Franklin. And I did so well there for those 6 months, but I had all those cases pending. It was too late. I got scholarships to Howard University for track. I was on the basketball team. I was on the baseball team. And the teachers were amazed. They said, we don't understand. He said, you had so much talent to do all these things. He says, I can get you in Howard anytime. He says, you're one of the fastest kids here in the city. And it's no problem. And I said, yeah. So I held on. Of course, it didn't come to pass because that judge sent me away. And I'll never know what would have happened if I would have went on to school. I was gearing myself for the Olympics.
Wow.
I was training at Central Park on the reservoir. And my father used to tie me. And of course, the mile was in reach for a lot of people. I think Bannister and a couple of those guys were were breaking sub-minute, 4-minute miles. And if my calculations were right, I wasn't close, but I wasn't far.
Right.
I was in the ballpark as a young kid, imagine 15 years old. And I said, no, if this is a mile and 3/4, I started to do the math. And then I couldn't understand at that time because they put the metric system in. So you had to figure out the 1,500 meters to the mile. But whatever it came out, I thought I must have registered like a 4:40.
Wow.
4 minutes and 40 seconds for a mile. But that's pretty good at that age. Because
15, untrained? Yeah.
Yeah. Untrained, running with sneakers, no equipment,
Right.
not having no regiment. So that didn't come to pass. It was so funny because when I got to the reformatory, nobody could touch me in any kind of sports. I mean, I must have been trained to such a high potential that when they lined up for track and field or any other kind of sport, I over-excel myself. And it used to depress me because I said, I wasted all that training and I had to show it here. Nobody even knows what I could have done, you know? But nevertheless, the second step was I pretended I'm school. I read everything I could get my hands on. And then I was determined to graduate from high school. It was so funny. I was 16, and at that time, the high school equivalency diploma exam came out. And the qualification, you had to be 18 years of age to take the exam. The only thing while you were in prison, there's no teachers. You had to do it on your own, but they would proxy and watch you. So as I was always aggressive, I signed up to take the test. Nobody checked to see how old I was. I was only 16. And ironically, out of everybody at the prison, I was the only one that passed the exam.
Wow.
But now they had a problem because I was underage, right? So how do we give this kid a diploma? And he's underage. He was supposed to be 18 when he took it. And yet, the exam just came out. So somehow they must have talked up in Albany and they allowed me to have the diploma. So I was the first kid at 16 years old to get a high school diploma. After that, I continued. And they said, you know, you're probably going to need a Regents diploma to really get in school. So for the next year and a half, I studied, took Regents exams while locked up. We had a teacher that would go over it with us. And we took regular examinations until I got my Regents diploma. Then I thought I was on my way. I got released, went to Bronx Community for a little while. It was tough. Meanwhile, I didn't know that I had a child while I was locked up.
Wow.
My wife was very young and I was only 15. And then when I got released, I was 16, 17 years old of age and had no job and I was going to be on parole. No way.
A lot of pressure.
I couldn't do it. And it got me into trouble because I thought of every kind of hustle that there was to make money to survive. And that was always a fault in my life. I did everything under the sun to advance myself, but not with anything that I did well, which was music. So all through my life, I invested in everything except music, you know, and that was my Waterloo. I ended up messing around, getting high, and they sent me back. I was a parole violator. I maxed out, did the rest of my year and a half, and then was released. And then there I was again. Ironically, the lady took me back into the job that I had. She liked me very well at the Council on Foreign Relations. And after that, I decided to put that band together. And I knew nothing about the instrument. This is the Cinderella story. When I came out, I was determined. I said, I'm going to dedicate the next 10 years of my life to learning my craft. And I wanted to learn the piano. I had no teachers. My mother couldn't afford a piano. I used to beg people around the neighborhood, could I come to their house just to touch a piano, not knowing what I was doing. I didn't know a C scale from a D major or anything. And then eventually, I made a key at the rectory in the church. I was caught down there by the father. And as father, I didn't take anything. I just wanted to play the piano. And we ran That was just another part of history. Then we went to the community center. Mr. Seabrook allowed me to go into that auditorium every day after work from 7 to 10. And his thinking was, well, at least I got him off the streets, not terrorizing anybody. He's locked in there with that piano. Don't know what the hell he's doing, but he's locked in there. Of course, we would do everything in that auditorium. Get high, we did everything. I sat down at that piano, and anytime anybody came in and played anything on that piano, I would watch them. I was so hungry to learn. I was so hungry to learn that I was able to pick up things on the finger movements of people that went on the piano. And of course, by trial and error, I started reading theory, which I had learned in Kagsaki under Mark Francis. He wouldn't let us play an instrument unless we learned theory. Of course, that was all Greek to me at that time. Theory. The one thing I had advantage of most people, I had ear training. And that was developed in the streets from doo-wop. Having sang doo-wop and doing 3-part harmony in the street, I knew harmony. You couldn't argue with me about harmony. I just didn't know what you called it. I didn't know a major from a minor, a diminished from an augmented. I knew none of that stuff until I went to prison, and it started to make sense. And then when I started to connect the theory to what was happening on the keyboard, and I read through books, amazing thing happened. While I was fiddling with the piano, I separated my fingers. And of course, I played a triad by accident. It's a C major chord. And I said, holy cow, I found something. This is harmony. And then I said, you know what? Let me take the progression up. So I just slided my fingers to the next thing, and it was a D minor. I didn't know it at the time. And boom, there was a D minor. I said, whoa. I said, one more time, what can I? And there it was, a song. I composed my first song by accident. I learned about the triad. When I looked it up, what I had done, I realized that the separation of my fingers on the keys developed a pattern. And of course, with reading, I played those same 3 chords, upside down, sideways, backwards, and forwards, and I developed a style and a process for writing, right? I could write about anything because I always had a command of words, right? From listening to old records and doo-wop. So I could write anything to a melody, and these chords were perfect. You know, so I did the same thing. Whatever I did that was a ballad form, I did in up-tempo form. So that was embellishing the song itself. So here I had 2 different ways of expressing myself, which nobody really understood until I showed them later on in life. I said, look, this is the same song that I sang 5 years ago. I just altered the chords, changed the progressions, and changed the words. It's the same song. And of course, to this day, people don't really understand. I really never divulged it, but I've done that a lot. If you really listen to my music, you can find songs that were done over, but you would never be able to recognize them, right? Because I had to take shortcuts like that for my deficiency in my musical training. You see, I found a way to do this. And then when I learned about modulation, forget it, that was another new world that people weren't using. And for me to incorporate this into Latin music was like a brainstorm. And then when I heard Joe Cuba sing in English and Hector Rivera, I said, wait a minute, this is right down my alley. I can do this blindfolded, right? Because I had sung doo-wop. So then I got introduced to Latin music when I came home, and some of the guys said, Joe, we don't sing no more. What do you mean? I said, we got a band. A band? What's that? He says, come to the rehearsal, we'll show you. Some of the neighborhood kids that went to school with me had started a band. One was Johnny Colon, and he was very successful. So when I went up to the rehearsal, and this is the truth, a lot of people don't like to hear it. I got up there because I love music, any kind of form of music I loved. I am a follower of Fred Astaire, Judy Garland, Patti Page, you name it, the Ink Spots. I followed all types. I was a romantic when it came to music. So I heard this music and this sound, and I was amazed that this kid who was about my age that went to school with me could put something like this together. And then something happened. He came over and he said, look, this is a private rehearsal. So in other words, he was really insulting me because of my reputation. He didn't want me there. And I had sang with him when we were younger, right? I mean, not to boast, but back then I would have kicked his butt.
Yeah.
I was a different person. How dare him talk to me like that? But whatever happened, I said, look, I'll leave. I said, you know, I don't want none of your music. I came up here to enjoy, you know, the music. But of course, they probably weren't thinking that way. And I got up and I said, I walked to the door, and two of the friends that had invited me said, Joe, man, don't pay him no mind. You know, we invited you. You know, that's the way he is. I said, you know what? I'm going to show him. I'm going to start a band like this and you watch. He said, yeah, you could do it, Joe. You could do it. But I was determined. For the next year, or I don't know how long it was, in and out, I had every combination of personnel in my band, right? I had gangsters, I had drug addicts, you name it. Anybody that would play or touch a can, I brought in there to play with me by trial and error. And I was discovering myself and learning at the same time each day. And then finally one day, after being very frustrated, I went back into that community center where I used to practice every day. And there were a bunch of kids in there. I mean, they were kids to me. Everybody was a kid to me if you were younger than me.
Sure.
And I think I was about 19 at this time, and they were like 13, 12, 14 years of age. And they were playing. They had a group, contained group. And I walked, I said, what are you guys doing here? Of course, they must have known my reputation, because nobody spoke up. So we just rehearsed. I said, well, you can't rehearse here. And then when I looked around, I got a brainstorm. They had no piano player. And I said, whoa, this is made. So I took the knife, I stuck it into the grand piano. I mean, it was, we did things like that back in those days. Of course, I wasn't out to really hurt anybody, but it was just to give a message. And the message was clear and clear. Look, I'm gonna be the leader of this group. And if you listen to me, I'll take you to heights that you would never imagine. Nobody argued. And then, of course, some of them never came back. They were too fearful because of my reputation. But some of them did come back. And then what I had to do was I had to convince their parents that I was a changed person and that all I wanted to do was play music. So here it was. I had to go interview in everybody's house and explain to them that I would bring them home every night after rehearsal. And that went well. For 6 months, we learned. Trial and error. And instead of those 10 years, the kids were telling me, what are we going to do? We played enough. We're ready. And I said, no, well, there's different steps. I didn't know the steps. But I had heard that my rival, that young man that had wanted me out of his rehearsal, had got a recording contract. And I said, well, let me find out where it was. And of course, it was George Goldner, famous for N Records, Frankie Lyman, and all those groups that he did back in the days. He came to see me audition and he said, I love your band. He says, but get another singer. So I was poor because he was talking to me. He said, you sound too sweet. He said, you need somebody. Yeah. He said, you need somebody that screams like James Brown or something like that. Right. I said, oh, forget it. That was the best move I did. He admitted later on that he made a big mistake.
Yeah.
And that was so funny. But eventually, everybody was after me because we started to play in these clubs. And everybody we had no record, but we were becoming popular along with all the other groups that were singing. And then finally, I really hit my Waterloo when I went to Roulette Records. And of course, you know, those guys were control, you know, and they sort of like threatened me if I didn't want to do this, I had to do this. If they ran the industry. And of course, you know, I was a kid that learned streetology. That's the title of my memoirs. And
what is it? What is what?
Streetology.
Streetology.
The study of the streets.
Yeah, man.
And they said, well, you're a wise guy, man. It seems like you signed contracts with everybody. I said, yeah, because everybody here is trying to take advantage of me, right? He says, yeah, but this guy says he got to contract you. This guy, I said, yeah. But they all were trying to make me sign blank contracts. So that's what I did. I said, I'm a minor. I looked up the law. I said, not only that, that's not my name, you know? He said, well, get the hell out of here. We're going to teach you a lesson. You ain't going to record with nobody. And he kicked me out the office, right?
Wow.
But that was their way of bringing me back into fold. They were going to bring me back, but on their own terms.
Right.
So I went out distraught. I lost every hope of recording. Was in high demand, but of course the industry was controlled. I didn't know that. And then I got a call from a disc jockey. He said, "There's a new guy starting a new label, and I could send him to hear your band. You know, what do you say?" I said, "Sure."
Now, what radio station was this?
It was FM Dick Ricardo's Sugar Show.
Okay.
Right. It was popular at night. It's FM station. I just forget the call letters now. But back then, very popular. There was Symphony Sid on WEVD, and then there was Dick Ricardo on the FM station. So he sent this guy over who was biting his nails. He watched the band. He said, "I like you." He says, and he would look me in the face. He says, "Oh, what do you want?" I said, "I want to record." He said, "Okay." And he said, "What else?" I said, "I want to get paid." He said, "Okay." So I was shocked. This guy agreed on everything. He says, "Well, when?" He says, "Next week." I said, "Yeah." You couldn't hold me. Excitement, the blood rushed through my body. I mean, everything happened. Here the dream was coming true. Here was the guy that had so much dreams as he was a young kid. It was my chance to change my identity, to make something out of myself. And I didn't want anything to interfere. So I told the guys, we had rehearsed, and you got to understand this, the band, we never had any charts. We never had any music. Everything was done by memory. So for me to lead the band, they had to watch all of my instructions from the piano. And when we got the studio, to this day, a lot of people are amazed. And you told them that I recorded those songs without any music. They said, "How could he do that?" He says, "He did it." We were at that studio in Belltown on 33rd Street, across the street from Madison Square Garden. When we got there, Johnny Pacheco, I think, was the music director. Jerry Masucci was the producer. And he says, "Okay, what do you got?" So we started to play the song. It was a 4-track studio. Herb Greenbaum was the engineer. And we started to play. And he says, "Well, what are you doing? Don't you want to do sections at a time?" I said, no, we have to play everybody at one time. He says, "Kid, let me show you how this is done. We do sections and record." I said, no, they got to see me. So actually, we started to record. And he was amazed. He was in shock that everybody came on cue. Everybody did what they did. And he wanted me to rest. Now, my thinking was, if I leave this place without completing this album, they're not going to call me back, right? So I had to get them committed. So I tried to do the whole album in one session.
Holy shit.
I sang all the songs, and he kept saying, "Don't you want to come back?" I said, no, I could do it. The last song, I was starting to lose my voice. Ordinary Guy. And as I sang the song, I said, "Oh, maybe I have to come back." He says, "No, leave it in." So what do you mean? He says, "It's very soulful." I said, "Very soulful." I said, "Well, what the heck do I know? Leave it in." So that's the story. I recorded that album in 5 hours, petrified that they were going to send me home if I didn't complete it, not knowing the procedures. And when you record, you rest, you come back, you do the rhythm and the horns, And the next thing, they took pictures, and the album was released.
You're talking about your first record?
Yeah, Gypsy Woman.
Yeah.
So excited that everybody was standing by waiting to see if they're going to play. So then I got to brainstorm. I said, look, the whole band, everybody got a bunch of dimes.
This is a great story.
Everybody is required to call up and request our song. So the guys were requesting this song all over the neighborhood. We had everybody. And then finally, the disc jockey comes on the radio. He says, tell the fellas in East Harlem, don't call them more. They don't need their dimes. The song is a hit.
That's awesome.
The rest was history. It's unbelievable. I never had to put another dime in. After that, the city was captured. It was such a, I know how Michael Jackson felt. And I know those early groups like Frankie Lyman, had that nostalgia that happens to you. But you have to understand, the band was 12, 13, and 14 years of age. They didn't even know how to dance. They had holes in their instruments. We couldn't afford a pair of drums. And here we were making records in the neighborhood. We were like the kings of the hill, right? And then I was the leader. Of course, I was older, but and leading them direct, it changed my whole identity. People didn't know that I was the same guy that was in the Dragons until later on. You know, they just thought it was a new personality on the streets.
I got a bunch of, that's such a cool story. I mean, thank you for sharing that. And I'm so happy. I got a bunch of questions coming from that though.
Yeah, good
okay. In the movie, you made a comment that was pretty heavy about when you were inside. You said, when you have a number and they start calling you 12173, reality starts to kick in. My question is, you obviously were a changed person before and after. What drove that, man? Like, that doesn't happen usually. As you know, you go in, you come out, and then like you had the first cycle, and then that's what people's lives are like.
Well, you know, it's your rearing. People might not understand this, but in my book, I said, thank God that when my mother first sent me to school in kindergarten, there was a teacher there that expressed her love to me. And I probably would have never known that side of the coin if this lady wasn't kind to me. You have to understand, I was an only child. You're put in a setting with a bunch of kids. You don't know what's going on. And you're in school, away from your mother and your parents. So you're lost. But here comes a teacher that shows you some affection and carries you through and makes you feel comfortable. That sticks with you. And of course, despite everything else that I did negative in my life, that first experience was embedded in me. You see, so before I knew hate, before I knew violence, I knew love from that woman.
And you were able to hang on to that.
That carried on in my subconscious without me ever knowing. It's only now in my twilight that I put all of this together and I understand. When I was writing my memoir, I said, you know what? Thank God that lady was kind to me, because I would have never known. Can you imagine a youngster growing up and never heard a kind word? And then he reaches 9, 10, 15, 6, 17 years of age and never heard a kind word? All he knows is violence, hatred, prejudice. That's what he becomes.
Of course.
Thank God that I was able to reverse that, because I was embedded with some kind of love, even from my mother. You see? So
that's amazing.
It's very important when you grow up and how you're reared. That's why a lot of families say you should all eat at the table. Never understood that, but I understand it now.
Sure.
You see? Because after a while, they'll get used to it. You might nowadays, you might fast food. I want to go here. No. But if you command that they sit at that table and you make it a routine, eventually they'll get used to that in their old age and they'll carry it on to another generation. But we've lost some of that, and you know.
Oh, totally. But that's really a miracle in your life, especially because you got sent up originally for what was kind of bullshit. You didn't steal the call. You know what I'm saying? You had a lot of reason where you could have had a chip on your shoulder, man. And I give you, I don't know if it was a God thing or a destiny, but the fact that you held it together like that, man, a lot of respect to you, man.
That's the end of my story. That's the period, because God did come in my life.
Yeah.
And he guides me. Yeah, you can't give me any kind of argument. I just realized I'm 78. I said, how dare me ask for anything else in life?
Yeah.
He has been waking me up for 78 years. How could I ask for any more?
Right. I get that, man.
You know, and it's true. When you start thinking, oh, I find myself, oh, I want a new car. Oh, I want this, I want that. When that should be my priority. You see, and that's what gets us into trouble. It's vanity, right? But it's very hard. It's very hard to get out of that realm of thinking.
Yeah.
You know, I've read some books, and you know, recently I discovered the Kabbalah, where this guy was in a cave and he envisioned, and some of the choice words that they use, that originally God's intention was to import goodness to the world. Perfect. It's so simple.
Right.
It's nothing complicated. You don't need a college degree to understand that. There was no bad.
Yeah.
There was only goodness. Man ate the bread of shame, and that's why we have to endure all of the suffering and pain.
Yeah, man. But
once you understand that, you know, the suffering, and you have the definitions of the 4 types of suffering, where you suffer for mistakes that you make, you suffer for the mistakes that others make, you suffer for accidents and death, and then you suffer for misery just for things that happen normal day in life. So once you understand this, you're able to adjust, and then life becomes easier, right? A lot of your fears go away, you know?
Man, to come from where you started in East Harlem and to intellectualize and absorb all this, man, you've done so much work. So, I mean, props to you, man, you know, because that's, no, so, I mean, look, I grew up in the Bronx. It wasn't much different, but you got to do a lot of work to sort of like, this is not stuff we're taught.
No, you see,
growing up and like, it's just getting through today and getting through tomorrow. That's what we're taught, you know?
Right. Well, it's just like with this whole pandemic. I mean, it's written. I never knew these things. And it says, repent and I will heal your land. It's so true. That's it, because everybody's praying. Everybody says, oh, God's going to do this for me. Oh, God is going to do that. But nobody's saying, I'm sorry. You want to go to the next step when you're bypassing the whole essence of life. You're bypassing, oh, well, I know I don't have to worry about this because I do this. I'm a good person. Come on. You're missing the boat. You're missing the boat. That's not the way, because he only reveals to those that have the pure heart. And that's very difficult. I struggle with it every day. You know, the mistakes I made constantly, daily. But, you know, nobody's perfect.
Of course.
Only God is.
But you did a great job when the dime must have dropped somehow with you when you realized, look, I'm trying to hustle. I'm trying to make money, but I'm not doing anything where I've got to, like with music, like with this is my connect. This is what my passion. This is what I'm putting out now, something that's kind of like in line with who I am. How did that, that's a huge one, man. How did that?
Well, I had no choice, because I wanted to be a ball player.
Right.
I wanted to emulate Jackie Robinson. That was my idol.
Right.
Him and Frankie Lyman. And it didn't materialize. I guess, I don't know if it was my physical size or that I got into trouble. I wasn't able to find out how far I could have went in sports. And then music came along, right? It's something that I always done, but something happened in my life early on. And as an only child, you get to do a lot of thinking, right? And then you think about the direction. Where do you want to go? What do you want to do? And who do you want to be? And how to get there? Now, as a youngster, it's very difficult to foresee how do you get there.
Right.
So you try to emulate others, and you find out what did they do to get there. And it all comes down to hard work, aggression, right? And not giving up, and having a passion for something that you love, right? So when the music came along, that was my passion, because I didn't make it in sports. It didn't materialize. And then I got a taste of it, not knowing that it would have come abruptly as it did, you know? And I feel I was blessed, you know? And then even further that I'm still able to do it now.
Yeah,
That
man.
is what is ironic. I travel around the world and people see me and they said, I remember I got off the plane in Colombia, South America, and the guy said, "Can you do it? Who are you?" I said, "I'm Joe Bataan." He said, "Get out of here. Joe Bataan got to be 90 years old with a walking cane." And I said, "But I'm Joe Bataan." He said, "No." And he actually said, "Sing a song." So he picks a song that was popular in that country, which they had changed the title. It's called The Riot, but they changed it called Avión. That means the airplane.
Okay.
It was a big hit in Colombia. I never knew this because we didn't have internet back then. And he said, "Sing the song." Of course, I hadn't sang the song in 30 years. Only when I sang the song, he agreed. Let him in. Let him in the country.
So funny. That's hilarious, man.
Yeah. So people see me on stage and they see an energy. And that took a long time to get into that because I have to laugh because I was a very shy person.
Really?
At the very beginning of my career, I would sing and I'd run off the stage after that. You could find me in the car headed home, but get my money and get out of there.
It's amazing, man, because one of the things like when you're on stage, you got eyes all over the place, man. I was watching you and you were like, you weren't missing a beat. And another question I had to ask you is, how did you learn to put arrangements together so well? Because you had horns, a variety of percussions, drums, keyboard, bass, sometimes guitar, lots of vocals. So even on that first record, you had a lot of moving parts. How the hell did you like put these arrangements together? I know you said you had, but like how to conceptualize that with no training, that's really freaking hard.
But it was like the ear. You see, all these sounds I've heard in a lifetime growing up. So you have to understand, I listened to Gershwin when I was very young, and I was amazed at the orchestration at what this guy did. I mean, I could never do what he did, but it was just the idea and the concept of him and Cole Porter, what these guys did with music, it rubbed off on me. So certainly not as big thing as they did, but enough to get me some space in the field of arranging, right? So most of my arrangements were head arrangements. I could remember because I did so much by memory that everything was embedded in my head, right? I would tell people what to play. They would play it, and I would make them play it until they got it corrected, until I found out that I could have my music written down.
Okay.
And that wasn't until maybe 9-10 years after I did Gypsy Woman. When the company decided, "Joe, we want to go a different direction with you. We think that you can really get out there." All right. So I was appalled that they wanted me to change my band, right? So we want to get the best musicians in the world. And I said, "Yeah, but I still want to have my band because I had an identity." So yeah, you can have your band. But I never knew who these guys were.
So you had a bunch of sidemen.
Yeah, but these sidemen were Cornell Dupree.
Oh, shit.
Bernard Purdie.
Oh, my God.
Lou Soloff. I mean, Lou Marini. I mean,
so
I didn't know who these guys were.
You had Cornell Dupree and Bernard Purdie?
Cornell Dupree played in my early record. Bernard Purdie, he said, I went over to, I was in the studio. I didn't know. I said, "Look, did you play the drums like this? You're not playing it flat." He looked at me like, he said, "Son, do you want a hit record?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Get over there. Let me show you how this is done." Before the song started and the count was given, he was playing the drums. I'd never seen this. And he came right up, didn't miss a beat. It started on tonic, boom. And I said, "Oh my God, keep your mouth shut."
Yeah.
These guys are the best.
Cornell Dupree is like one of my favorite guitarists.
Oh, man.
He's
Buddy Shaw did a lot of those arrangements, you know. But the thing about it is, he did exactly what I told him.
Yeah.
You know, you get arrangers and they want to embellish and put what they want on their take about what you said, and they'll always change. He wouldn't do that. He'd do exactly what I told him to do. If I sang out the parts to him or played it on the piano, he would write it the exact same way. Of course, some things he would put in there, don't get me wrong. Marty is a great arranger, you know, but he should get a lot of credit also. But no, and I just found out, and then it's so ironic. And there was a stage in my life where I had nothing. After being Joe Bataan for a while, I lost everything. I lost the record companies, and I had no idea how I was going to make a comeback. And one disc jockey said, "This guy is so amazing. Every time you think that he's fell off, he comes back. Year after year, sometimes he comes back. We thought he had disappeared." And I had no piano. I think I lost the piano. I had no car. I was in this apartment in the Bronx, and they said, "We want you to do an album." So I had nothing to write.
Oh my God.
And I said, "What do I do?" So I turned on the radio, right? And this is amazing, but I think about it. I listened to all kinds of songs, and I took parts from different songs and incorporated into a composition mentally, right? And when I got it, I was able to give that arrangement to Marty or whoever it was, and they would duplicate it. And I had no instruments or nothing. I had lost everything. And I did an album. That album was the Lasso album. If you ever listen to that, you'll be amazed.
That's phenomenal, man. I mean, I think your arrangements is one of your strongest talents because, again, you had a lot of moving parts in there. It's like Carlos Santana. He's got like 15 guys. You had the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you had a
lot. What I realized early, and this was a problem because I knew nothing about copyright, right? But I knew certain things that were told to me how to protect yourself. You mail your song to and never open up the envelope, or you do your arrangements in such a way that it's very difficult for anybody to copy. And especially in the Latin field, they couldn't understand because the chord and structure that I used, they weren't using because a simple montuno has been played for years, it plays the same way.
Right.
But if you write conventional A, B, A, right? I would take it like A, go to Z, modulate it, bring it back to F, and then take it out with D. And you say, where the hell did he go? Right? But because I was able to do that and fit it in so that nobody would be able to copy my songs. See,
so you were able to protect some of your stuff, or did you fall prey to some of the unscrupulous shit in the music industry, especially at that time?
I'm sorry. What did you say?
Did you fall prey to some of the unscrupulous stuff that was? Oh
yes.
Yeah.
Still looking. Look. This is the ironic part of my story. And again, I had always had.
Hey Joe, the microphone for some reason mic. Oh yeah, cool. Thanks. Yeah, I want to.
Okay, that's me. I'm sorry.
No,
I'm getting relaxed here. That's what it was. I'm leaning back like I'm in my living room. No. What was I going to say to get a little bit?
You're saying about the unscrupulousness of the music industry.
Yeah. Well, I lost my thought. Anyway, yeah. Well, there was a lot of that, and the only way we could protect ourselves was changing some of the songs and modulations, or not going to conventional A B out like that. I did for a long time, and that's the only way we could protect ourselves back then. I know a lot of people who were trying to copy my stuff, but you look at it, not many people copied Joe Bataan's music. Now, when they did, they tried to bootleg it. And that's so ironic because all through my life, I was never a rich guy. Never had an enormous amount of money. But then here it was. And I'll tell the story now, even though I was working at Spotsford, the juvenile correction center. I was the tour commander there. And it's ironic how you go.
Yeah, how did you
become the boss of the place that you were locked up in?
How did that happen, man? Like what? Because I know you got out of music for a while and you did like some youth counseling. How the hell did that happen?
Yeah, well, what happened was after my success as Joe Bataan, I fell into a Waterloo. I wasn't doing anything. I didn't have Fania no more, and I didn't have South Soul.
Okay.
I had a wife and I had kids, and I had no income, right? So I was looking for a job, but it was very difficult for Joe Bataan to get a job. I mean, after all, I had been in the spotlight. What the hell am I going to do? Go out to work?
Right.
But nevertheless, I went out, looked for a job. I got a job. And then I answered ads in the paper, not knowing. I said, what the hell can I do? And then I saw this job about being a counselor. And I said, gee, I could. And I went for the interview with the city. And some people, they recognized me. Oh, Joe, what are you doing here? So I need a job. He said, oh, man, we got the perfect spot for you with your knowledge of music and all this stuff. Yeah. So I ended up getting the job as a counselor.
That's amazing.
The thing was that the investigation had to show that you didn't have any prior convictions, right? So don't ask me how I weathered that storm, but one guy told me you got to tell the truth. Because if you lie, that's automatic disqualification.
Right.
So I told the truth, and they asked me about it. I said, it happened 25 years ago. For some reason it went through, and that was the best move I ever did in my life, because for the next 25 years, I worked as a counselor, and the same aggressiveness, the same passion to work with kids, and the way I did with music, I did through that job. I don't want to brag, but I think I was one of the best counselors that ever happened.
Yeah, I'm sure you were, man.
I never had to raise my hand at a youngster. They had some of the toughest kids come through there. I mean, I've seen people being nerve-wracked working in a place like that. But for some reason, I was able to talk to youngsters. And to this day, grown men come up to me, stop me at concerts. Joe, you remember me? So who are you? He says, you told me that if I ever get out and do right, they'll come and see you and you'll help me get a job. I said, oh, you get out, you're that little pint-ass kid, little mean kid. Yeah, that's me. And so that makes it all worthwhile,
Yeah.
I mean, those kids used to, I don't know how they got my telephone number, but they would call me at home and say, how come you're not coming to work? We don't want nobody else here. These are rough kids, right? And it was amazing. Because my first lesson was, I let everybody call me Joe. I never used my last name. And some of the people will call us, Joe, how you letting these kids call you by your first name? I said, look, I know who I am, right? It doesn't bother me, so it shouldn't bother you.
Right.
And I just had that certain feel for youngsters, having been a youngster myself and having been in trouble. I was perfect for that job to this day. I did things that they have incorporated in the prison system way back then. It's so funny because my dormitory, or the kids that I had or that were locked up, they would have followed me to Mars and back. Right? That's how much love they had for me, and that's what made me endure those 25 years working there, because it was tough, working in a place like that, But it was the best move that I ever did, because I didn't make a lot of money, but the benefits took care of my family and everybody and my lifestyle for years.
That's awesome, man. Well, plus you had to feel good paying it forward like that, because that same story that you just told me about your kindergarten teacher giving you some love to hang on, I gotta believe that was in your mind when you dealt with all these kids.
It had to be. So, and being a kid myself, and I know being as an only child, that even when I ran my first race with the brothers at St. Cecilia's and in Manhattan College, that I was by myself. I never had brothers and sisters.
Right.
So everything I had to do myself, I had to fight on my own. If somebody picked on me, I had to find a way to survive. So for that reason, a lot of the burden I had to carry. And it could be a lonely space in growing up.
Sure.
Right? If you don't have anybody to confide in, So you have to confide in your own self. Are you mature enough to, you know, to talk to yourself, to lead yourself out of danger. You know, so you know, it could have went the other way, but thank God it didn't.
Yeah, man. Let me ask you this. Have you, at any point, you ever stop and give yourself a pat on the back, man?
I'm not going to lie. Anybody sits here and what I've accomplished, don't get me wrong, and says that they don't relish it, they're lying.
Yeah,
I play my own music.
Yeah, man.
Right? Because I reminisce and I say, wow, who would have believed that this guy, this little snot-nosed kid from a barrio did this?
Good.
And it still sounds okay. I said, man, I must have been ahead of my time. What was I thinking? I said, thank God I was in the right place at the right time. I said, who would have thought that 50 years later that my
people
song
are talking about
will be
Joe
loved by
Bataan.
somebody?
Yeah,
I got a new generation in Europe, a new generation in California, and somebody remarked, when I finally understood it, he says, every Saturday morning, when I clean the house, I put on Joe Bataan's music.
That's awesome, brother.
Because, and my kids put it on. And he said, all through our life, the whole family was raised on Joe Bataan music. I said, get out of here. He says, man, you don't know what you've done for our household. You know, it's real. And then the big story is, I never forget, I was running on the west side of 89th Street, jumping out of the car in my early days. And I was passing by this young lady, and she says, hey, aren't you Joe Bataan? I said, yeah, how you doing? Goodbye. She said, wait a minute. Stop. I said, what? He says, don't run past by me like that. I just spent my last $3 for my welfare check buying your record, right?
Wow.
And I do that to your fans. And ever since that day, I am the first at a gate and the last one to leave. I sign everybody's autograph. If they know Joe Bataan will sit there and take pictures with you, I enjoy it. And I'll never forget what that young lady said. And I never made that mistake again.
That's cool, man. I want to ask you about your song Subway Joe. How that is like one of the cool, like how cool is that song, man? How did you, like, is that based on a true story? I mean, it's like, it was like rap before rap, you know, that's like such a cool vibe, man. Everything about that. How did you come up with that?
Well, after the success of Gypsy Woman, I said, I got to come up with something. So put your mind to works. But what do you want to do? Well, what does everybody do here in the city? I said, they all go on the subway. That's a perfect way to communicate. I said, now write the song. And then I said, I took the subway downtown one day to buy some Chinese food. And then I started laughing to myself. I said, yeah, I bet you I can do something with this. And I wrote the song, how he gets beat up in the train. And he goes and he's called Subway Joe. And lo and behold, song put on, and then it's been a remark. I'm still trying to research. They say that the Rolling Stones covered that song. Now, I can't prove it.
Really?
They have a song called The Devil's Disciple or something like that. Something about the devil.
Sympathy for the Devil.
Yeah, that's it. But I don't see the connection.
No, I don't either, because I know that song real well.
They swear by it. And I'm saying, I don't know. But then there's another group that I'm going to research. It's much closer, called Elephant. Something Elephant. It's a rock group.
Yeah. Song. Hang on. I think I can.
You know who it is?
Yeah, hang on. I'm just a brain slip here. Give me 1 second. Let me look this up. Yes, I know what you get.
Like White Elephant or something like that.
Yeah, I think it's White Elephant. Hang on.
Yeah,
I think that's what it is. Let's see. I'm gonna write it down. I don't have it off the top of my head, but I'll get it to you.
Yeah, I saw it on YouTube, and somebody said, "Oh, that sounds like Joe. Subway Joe sounds just like this song by Elephant."
That's so funny.
Said, wow. I said, let me get to them because I'm going to tell you this story now, and it's for your ears. Back when I was working at Spofford, I was enjoying just an ordinary life with my family and the kids. We lived in Stevenson Commons in the Bronx. I hadn't been playing. And I was just satisfied to go home, watch the Knicks play, go to work, see a movie, play some paddleball. That was it.
Play some paddleball. That's so cool.
Yeah. I mean, at my age, that's so fun. That's another story.
No, but I mean, that's like such a normal lifestyle.
49.
Yeah, that's very cool.
This girl whipped me. I mean, she tore me apart on the court. And nobody tears a man, or especially a woman, but she made me look ridiculous. And I practiced and practiced in the bathroom and until I was able to defeat her. I wasn't gonna let no
That's
women.
funny, man.
But anyway, the story goes that the guy comes down, he's a fan of mine. He says, "Oh, I heard your voice on the radio." I said, yeah. You got me mixed up with Joe Q or something. No, man, I've been listening to you for years. I heard your voice. I said, okay. And paid no mind. I went home to work. A girl said, "Joe, I heard your voice on this record." I said, "What record?" She said, "So some group called the Fugees." I said, "The Fugees? Who the heck are the Fugees?" So it didn't pay no mind. And then I'm passing the record store. And I said, "Let me go in there and buy this album, whoever they are." So it's the Fugees. And I buy the album, I take it home, and I play it, and I don't hear anything. And then I come to, I think, the 7th song, and I hear my voice.
They sampled you.
And it says, "Gypsy Woman," and then it started cursing. And I say, "What the hell? How did they do that?" I called my friend at Salso, Glenn Russo, who knows all about that. Joe, you can't do nothing. They're doing it to everybody. Actually, kids had sampled about 25 people. But everybody's name was given credit except Joe Bataan. They didn't have my name on there, but they sampled Gypsy Woman from my team. So after that happened, he said, "You can't do anything." I said, "That's baloney. There's got to be something I can do." So I decided to act as my own attorney. I used my other name.
Yeah.
And I sent a letter to CBS. I said, "I don't know if you're aware of this, but some plagiarism has happened with this group. They've used my name, such and such and such," and I sent them the tape. Didn't hear anything. I went down there to CBS, and things had changed. No longer can you walk in a building and ask to see somebody. They got security guard. You got to show ID. You can't even get in the building. So I turned away with my daughter and went back. 3 months later, I get a call. "Mr. Silburn, attorney." "Hi, Mr. Nicolano." "Yes. We're calling you about Joe Bataan." Now, you got to understand this. This is God working, how this happened. And I said, "Yes, what can I do?" He says, "Well, we understand we got your tape, and the kids are very sorry. They didn't know, and such and such and such." I said, "Yeah, okay." He says, "Well, they want to rectify it." I said, "Fine." He said, now, ask me if it was the Holy Spirit. I don't know what it was, but I know that everybody was kicking me under the table in the house, right? And when the guy said, "Well, what do you think?" I said, "Well, I'll get back to you." So they said, "Oh, man, maybe you could get a couple of $1,000 or something." I called him back, and he says, "Yeah, okay, what can we do to rectify this?" I had research and found out they sold 14 million records.
Wow.
14 million. The top of my head, I said, "Okay, $100,000. There's a big silence on the other side of the phone. Everybody started kicking me under the table. My wife, the kids, "Are you crazy? Get out of here. You're stupid. For that kind of money." And the guy said, "I didn't think. I get back to you."
Okay.
She said, "You blew it. You stupid nut." And I didn't get a call for another month. "You blew it." And then all of a sudden the phone call rang. It was the same guy. "Mr. Delano, I talked to the kids and we decided, maybe we could do something about this, "Yeah, what is that?" He says, "Well, we want to offer you 75. Everybody's jumping, hitting me in the leg, kicking me. Yeah. I said, "No." They said, "I'm crazy." I said, 95. He said, 80. I said, 85.
Right on, man.
He said, hey, I said, I agree. The next thing,
So you got 85 grand. Awesome.
I was the only attorney for Joe Bataan. I never saw the guy. He never saw me. This was an act of God.
Yeah, man.
Right? Because all through my life, I never made any money from music. Whatever I pissed away a drug, whatever it is. The funny thing was that when the check came from Japan, it was the first half. So how the hell do you cash a $40,000 check without using your name? And don't ask me if I did it. And then the second payment came, and I did one of the smartest things in my life. I went and bought a house.
Good for you, man.
Now the house is worth $1 million.
Yeah. So you got paid.
Yeah. But what I'm telling you, how ironic that is.
That's
that you
crazy.
go through your life beating your head, and then something like this comes along. But then when I tell you about the elephant, that's my next move.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that they sample me when you find out who they are.
This is Bataan Nidelano representing Joe. That's great, man. That's really cool, man.
Whoever wants to sample me, go ahead.
Yeah, right. Oh man, what a nice story. Hey man, what are the top 3 musical experiences you've had?
One, the Smithsonian. I got a call from Mr. Diaz, who was the curator, the president of the Latino Smithsonian. And he said, Joe, we want to honor you in the Smithsonian. I said, me? This little guy from East, I said, yes. Because you are a bridge to the music for Chicanos and Mexicans around the country. I said, fine, if you want me, you know, say, bring the band. We want you to perform. Wow. We're going to honor you. So then he calls me the next week. He says, I don't know, we put the word out there, and now the Asian community said, hold on. He said, he's a part Asian. We want to be involved also. He said, it's just not a Latin thing. So he says, they want to come aboard. I said, fine. So now we had the Latinos and we had the Asians. He calls me the next week. He says, wait a minute. I said, what? He said, the African Americans are upset. He said, you're part African American. He said, how dare you put something wrong with us being involved?
Oh my
God. So they got involved. So supported by the Latinos, the Asians, and the African American. And that was one of the greatest moments of my life.
That's cool, man.
And I've been called back ever since. And one of the guys there, Theo Gonzalez, professor, he helped edit my book.
That's
and
great.
Of course, we're still looking for a publisher. But that was one highlight of my life. The other highlight was when I went to the German Democratic Republic, East Berlin. I went there with Angela Davis.
Oh, wow.
I was representing the music. People told me, Joe, don't go. You're going to be labeled a communist. Don't go over there. You're never going to get back to this country. And I was mad because I had just put on a concert at Shea Stadium. People couldn't understand, where the hell did he get any money to run a concert at Shea Stadium? Of course, everybody was against me. The next month, 2 months later, they did Yankee Stadium and it became a big success. Actually, nobody remembers me doing the first one, how they got the idea. And it rained like cats and dogs on my concert. We got 15,000. But when they duplicated that concert, 3 months later, they pulled 40,000.
Wow.
My dream at that time was to get enough capital to build a Latin Motown. That was my dream.
A Latin Motown, yeah. So,
of course, the industry was against it because how dare any musician think so high, right? Your place in the sun is singing and performing on stage. Don't get involved in the business end, which I was always a fast thinker. You know, I wanted to do publishing. I wanted to know everything. I wanted to know marketing, you know. So when that happened to me, I got paid, and Angela Davis and the crew of Young Workers Party asked me if I wanted to go. I said, "What? Yeah, I'll go." I was so bad. I got 40 guys to volunteer, and they accompanied me. I had no passport.
How'd you get there with no passport?
Ask me that again, and I'll tell you. I don't know. Angela Davis called the Red Phone hotline to Moscow, and it was arranged for me to travel without a passport. Never happened again.
Yeah, that never happened to anybody, man.
I went to East Berlin without a passport, and they asked me to perform. So I performed for the GDR at that time. Now, you got to understand, when you cross Checkpoint Charlie, there's the West and there's the East.
Yeah.
Everything on the West looks like the United States, colorful. But when you get to the East, everything was drab, it was gray, it was black. They had no air conditioning. The beer was warm. They had no refrigeration. And when I got there, people were treating me like a king. They had never seen an Afro before. And I was an instant celebrity. Everybody touched my Afro. America, And then I asked a question to the youngsters there, the girl. I said, where's all the other people? He says, Hitler killed all of them. What? He said, there's no old people here. These are all young people. And the first rule and law that was put out, no racism. So I got front page news of this while the rest of the world didn't know anything about this. I was there, right behind the Iron Curtain. And I really, they said, the theme of the festival was peace, friendship, solidarity. So I wrote a song. It's on one of my albums, Peace, Friendship, Solidarity. And then I asked them, can you translate this into Russian, German, and Spanish? When I sang that song and the folks that were in attendance heard their language being sung by somebody from America, they went crazy.
Oh, that's nice, man.
The standing ovation that I got there was talked about for many years. And the feeling I had never had before in my lifetime, how the president at that time, whoever he was, I forget his name, got up and Angela, everybody that was there just excused me for that song and from what I wrote. That was one of the second thrills of my life. The other thrill, I think, was Central Park at Summer Stage.
Yeah, that had to be cool.
It seemed like the whole neighborhood in the barrio came out to see me and Johnny Colon play. The same guy that refused to let me come to his rehearsal was playing on the same stage with me. And 2011, that was something full circle, to see that all these people hadn't forgotten you. I said, wow, what a thrill that was. You just bring tears to your eyes because you realize that you were that same kid. And here it is now 50 years later. And another generation, plus the old generation, is still listening to your music, right? And they haven't forgotten that the fact that that place was jam-packed, maybe 7,000, 10,000 people in that day. That had to be three prime events in my life.
That's beautiful, man. Hey, Mike.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm getting relaxed.
No, it's cool. I'm glad you're getting relaxed. Your ultimate skill set is this desire and ability to connect with people. Everything you're telling me, man. I mean, just the fact that you thought about, hey, how can I connect my music with people that don't even speak my language? Well, let me just translate it into their language.
Mm-hmm. Well, I forget her name because sometimes I get my memory lapse. The comedian, Joanne Rivers.
Oh, no. The blonde lady?
Yeah, she taught me something before she died. Joan Rivers?
Joan Rivers.
Yeah, Joan Rivers.
Joan Rivers. Yeah.
But she said, and this is what got me to talking, when I was trying to make a resurgence in the 90s, after doing the Call My Name, she says, I had to reinvent myself. She says, I looked at my book and it was empty. And I said, my God, that's exactly what's happening to me. I don't have anything. She says, and when I saw that, I reinvented myself. And that's what I did. I learned about the internet. One day I got on the internet, the guy wanted to interview me just like yourself from Australia. It was Red Bull. And he said, yeah, you know, Joe, we want to talk to you about this. And I said, yeah, well, you should have me come over. He said, when would you like to come over?
Right
The
on.
next thing I know, there was 3 tickets there for me to come to Australia to Red Bull. And that's it. From then on, I've never stopped traveling. And to go to Australia, which was 24-hour ride, and play over there. I forget the name of the group. Kids were terrific. Bamboo, that was their name. The Bamboo Band. Oh, when I heard them play, I thought I was back in time to my childhood days. Them kids were playing it the same exact way I played when I was a youngster. And we tore up Australia. And I said, wow, I can do this. Because I was always in the impression that nobody else could play my music. But everybody has caught up in the world. I have the Japanese All-Stars in Tokyo. They kick butt. I got the Rasa All-Stars in California, the Fulanos in Spain. I got the Filipino All-Stars in the Philippines. You name it, everywhere I go. I got a band in South America, in Colombia. So what I learned, it was a blessing. You don't have to work that hard like you did before, Joe. Write all your music down.
Right.
So that's what I do. My wife is in the band. She said I put her in the band because it's cheaper. She had to learn and sing it. She travels everywhere for the last 20 years. And I bring my music. One rehearsal, the show. So I'm able to travel all over.
That's wonderful, man.
Yeah.
Hey, tell me 1 or 2 changes you made or things that you did that had the biggest impact on your life. Could be musically, spiritually, professionally, personal growth, anything that was important to you at that time and changed your life.
Well, number one is spiritually. I had an awakening. I had heard the story on the radio and I related it to myself. And I went to see Star Wars. I was working at Spofford. I hadn't been playing. And of course, when you have certain ailments, you're always in denial, especially if you don't know what they are.
Right.
You know, you just feel that you're going to be healthy for the rest of your life, right? And one doctor told me, hey, you got to take this pill. Hey, yeah. For how long? He said, for the rest of your life. He said, don't you eat every day? I said, yeah. So you got to take a pill every day. I said, well, he said, blood pressure. So you know me, I was like, I don't need this. I'll do it one day, skip 3 days, you know. It caught up to me. I went to see Star Wars. I did a double. I worked 16 hours, went to the movies, got into the car, and then it hit. For those that don't know about this, this is a life-saving situation that you might find yourself in. I got into the car, and I started to get dizzy. Never had this happen in my life. And all of a sudden, my whole total aspect of life was going blank. And I knew something was happening drastic. And this is funny how it is. I carry everything in my bag. It was under the seat of my car. I had just got paid. I started reaching for my bag and my check. I didn't want to lose that. Instead of worrying about what was happening to me, shows you how life is. I leaned out the window and blood started rushing out of my mouth.
Holy
Not
crap.
little drops, gobs of blood were dropping from my mouth. I knew something drastic was happening and I had no control over it. The next thing I did, I reached over, my wife and daughter were in the car. I started choking my wife. It was choking her out of desperation because I couldn't explain what was happening to me and nobody was helping me.
Holy
It was
smokes.
like you were drowning. I said, choking, and she said she didn't know what happened. She saw this look. Once you start getting in that situation, whether it's a stroke, a heart attack, your whole appearance changes. It's almost like if the devil overtakes you. and this evil face comes upon you, all right, because you're in desperation to survive. I started banging the car. I jumped out the car, started banging on the hood. He ran and got a security guard. The security guard came. I started punching him in the chest. This is what was told to me. The next thing I knew, they subdued me somehow, and they told her. I didn't know what transpired. They had to tell me. And I went into convulsions, and they called the ambulance, and they said, okay, don't worry, he's going through something. You know, he might have been a seizure, a stroke, heart attack, whatever it was. And then they gave me a shot, took me to the hospital. When I was laying in the hospital in a coma for 8 or 12 hours, they got in touch with the whole family. Don't ask me how they did that in one day. Everybody was by my bedside. They said, his reading is 600, which is like death. He said, he's not going to make it. He's gone. So during that time, I transpired and I made myself believe this story, which I tell all the time. And there must have been a reason why. I saw a week in advance from somebody else's story that a hand was reaching down to me. I was drowning, I was going. And it said, like they had said in the story, Bataan, why do you keep running away from me? I gave you all this talent, you never did anything. It's always been about Joe Bataan. You never even mentioned my name, never said nothing. I'm gonna give you another chance. I'm gonna bring you back, right? And I wanna see if you keep mentioning my name. With that, I woke up, there was a tube down my throat. I didn't know what was going on. That was to keep me from breathing. And I started to curse under my breath because I said, my daughter was there and I was trying to tell her, get this shit out of my throat. And I got a piece of paper and a pencil and I wrote, get this shit. And they said, he's back. So they took it out and the rest is history. They told me what happened. I had the blood shirt that I kept for years in the back of my car so I would never forget what happened that day. They put me in all kind of medicine. And what's so funny about that, that it's happened 3 and 4 or 5 different times after that, all throughout the years.
Like mini strokes or something?
Yeah, and I've survived every one. I had cancer, right? I was diagnosed with colon cancer. And you know the feeling that goes through your head. Oh my God, what do you do? I beat it. They cut it out, attach my colon. I'm fine, cancer clear. I had hep C, I was cleared. How many strokes I must have had, right?
Dude, you're like a cat with 9 lives.
It's like God is not finished with me. So wherever I go, before I perform, I sing the Lord's Prayer. And it's so funny. That song I recorded 40, 50 years ago. Was too ashamed to sing it on stage. Now I can't go anywhere without singing it. Right. It's an R&B style. People have never heard the Lord's Prayer that way.
What album is that on?
Oh boy, it's on quite a few. Let's see. It might be on the Singing Some Soul album. Yeah, it might be on that one. Or it might be on Sweet Soul, one of them. Or it could be on, it's on one of them. I don't know which one. You'll see it on Google.
I will.
And it's tremendous how we've taken videos at the Honda Center, the Greek Theater, where everybody lights up their cell phones when I sing. And the crowd is singing along with me. And that's just, it's a thrill that's not even connected with music.
That's pretty cool, man.
Yeah.
Wow. Man, thank God you're okay. That's a lot of stuff, man. You got.
Hey, but that's why I'm called to testify. You see, I have to, that's why my book has to come out, because I have to tell the story. You see, because all through it, the conclusion is a period, right? It's all about him,
Right.
the big boss, you see? So everything else is vanity. But once you could discern that, then you have arrived. A lot of people can't discern that. See, I don't ask for money anymore. I ask for wisdom, discernment, and understanding, right? And give me strength in my weakness. And it's working. It's working.
It sure
You know,
is, man.
it's working for me. I don't know how long it's going to last, but it's working.
Tell me what you like most about yourself. Tough question.
Yeah. Well, I guess that I'm still here. You know, I realized in my old age, I started getting more wisdom than I could ever imagine. And I said, how dare me ask for anything else in life? I said, the big boss has been waking me up for 78 years. And I got the nerve to ask for a new car or help me pay my rent? No, he's giving me everything. But we take it for granted, right? Because you can't get a U-Haul and put all your guitars and piano and everything and take it with you when you go. It's gone.
Yeah, man.
Take out all, it's over. The party is over. So once you understand that, you don't have that fear as much about dying or leaving this world. You see, it's our fear of dying and all the other things that we think that we're going to lose. But once we can put him first and understand how everything else fits in because of him, we'll understand we don't own anything. Everything belongs to him. Who are you trying to fool? You know?
So you like that you've come to this realization most about yourself?
Yes.
That this tranquility and calm, sort of.
It's tranquility because I'm still struggling. Don't get me wrong. I'm not perfect. But at least I have an inkling of the direction, you know, right, which a lot of poor souls don't even understand, never get to that point.
Totally get it. Best childhood memory?
Wow. Childhood memory, yeah.
And man, your memory is sharp as, I hope my memory is half as good as yours. Like,
well, I've lost a lot of it.
But it's pretty sharp, dude. Don't you pat yourself on the back. You're pretty on top of it.
Yeah. But I think the one that I remember was the mayor's trophy meet at Madison Square Garden. I think I was 14. We came in fourth place in the city, but we were number one in Manhattan. And I didn't realize what that meant at the time. I was just mad that we lost, you know. We weren't first, but we were given awards as being the swiftest kids in Manhattan. That was really an honor.
Yeah, that's pretty badass.
That yeah, and you know, and I think it was Mayor Wagner whose trophy meet. So, you know, there's no telling what could have came from that. You know what I mean? But that was just a stepping stone, and how I reared my kids. Everybody had to run before they did anything. Right? All my kids run, you know. And then I had a lot of girls, but they all took up karate.
Oh, that's great. No,
yeah,
that's great. Hey, tell me the most important thing your dad taught you.
My dad taught me. Oh, I used to brag a lot. Yeah, I want to go make this money and I'm going to do this. And he said, look, you show me what's in your pocket. Right? Don't tell me what you're going to get, but show me in your pocket what you got there now. And I didn't realize until he was right. You know, I said, I was a dreamer. And yeah, I'm going to have this, which was fine. He said, yeah, but you haven't accomplished nothing. What do you got in your pocket? It's empty.
So humility. How about your mom? What's the most important thing your mom taught you?
Oh, boy. She taught me without me knowing that she was a scuffler. You know, she had so much energy. My mother was no taller than 4'9", but everybody knew her in the neighborhood. They had a radius of maybe 2 miles. When my mother came downstairs and hit the streets, it would take her almost an hour to reach the corner because everybody would stop to talk to her.
That's nice.
Right? And my girlfriends would say, your mother has to stop and greet everybody in the neighborhood. Because they all say, Mamie, how you doing? And saying, she'd be kissing babies all the way through the civil defense. She was the warden, and she ran the school center for the kids to have dances. And she taught me that, how to be very aggressive, never to giving up. I mean, the big story was that in the 3rd grade, I must have talked out of turn in class, and this teacher smacked me in the face.
Oh my God.
And my face was red. So I went home and I told my mother. All 4'9" of my mother grabbed me by the hand, dragged me through the street. The school was right next door. She ran through the building, past the principal's office, straight up to that classroom, and addressed that teacher. Did you smack my son? Yes, but no. You don't ever lay a hand on him.
Hell no.
He said, if something happens to him, you tell me. I'll take care of it. He said, you get my drift? That teacher was so petrified of my 4'9" mother. Don't get that she instilled in me a kind of confidence that I never had to take any bullshit from anybody.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was good or bad, but my
good.
mother was a fighter, and I realized that there were things I could do if you were abused or if somebody took advantage of you. You could speak up or, and she taught me to fight that way. So I did that all through my life with contacts with music companies, and I found a way to be aggressive when I thought I was right.
Yeah, and she did it out of love too, which is a nice way of teaching you.
Yeah. Oh, without a doubt.
Which is real nice. Just a few more questions, man. And thank you so much for being so cool. And this has been like a real treat. Toughest decision you've had to make or most difficult thing you've had to do?
Well, I guess, being on a straight and narrow, that's not an easy thing to do. You're surrounded by temptation. You can go either way in life because God gave us this gift of free will. You can go to the left or you can go to the right. And the toughest thing to do is to stay on a righteous path. I pray every day. I find myself sometimes slipping. I ask for forgiveness. And I try to make myself stronger, not to fall in that pit. Having fell into the pit so many times in my life,
sure,
I'm very cognizant of doing that again. I know how much it can hurt.
Yeah. So
the fear of being told what to do or not being your own person has been a very difficult thing in life, because with so many things going around, how life has changed, how the apparel that people wear has changed, the customs have changed from when I grew up, the culture, the racism, all of these things has changed. So how do you cope with those things now? It's not the same as it was 50, 60 years ago as I was growing up. The world now is overly populated. You bump into negative things more frequently than you did as a child.
Social media has polluted.
Yes.
Man, it's not fun sometimes, man.
Yes, and then a lot of the things are overlooked on purpose, and it's right before our eyes.
Yeah.
That is a danger, and I see it coming. And then somebody had remarked, well, this country is going to go down. And I'm saying, no, but that's the way we've been led to think. But throughout history, almost every nation has fell, right? God, thank God, I hope that never happens here.
Sure.
But after what happened at the Capitol building on January, I would have never dreamed that something like that could happen. I
Sure.
never dreamed that the Twin Towers would have been toppled.
I used to work there, man, when I was 14.
Oh my God, get out of here.
Yeah. When I was a kid in 1977, I used to work there. I was a messenger. Remember they had foot messengers before they had fax machines? And I used to, I'd make $2.90 an hour, and I would love when I worked overtime because then I got whatever time and a half. So I was like, oh, you know, I was a kid. So it was like, you know, as much as I could make.
I picked up my wife there. She worked there.
Yeah.
And not only that, I played there on the windows of the world.
Yeah. On the top floor.
And then to top it off, that year that happened, I was on a plane.
Holy crap.
And I believe that plane was targeted, right? Because when we landed in JFK, it was halted there for about 2 or 3 hours before they let us get off. And then when I got home and saw that on TV, I really believe that was part of the plan, to get one of those planes coming in from LA. To this day, people were calling me all over. Oh, are you okay? Okay. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And my wife stopped working a year or two before that happened at that building.
Oh,
you know?
Yeah.
Oh, you know?
Crazy stuff, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Joe, tell me, biggest change in your personality over the last 10 years, and how much of that has been intentional and how much is just a natural part of aging?
That's it, aging. that's a big change in my life. I always have been doing some of the things that I did. And you know, I had a good ride. I mean, I'm 78 years old. Who would have thought that I'd still be able to do this? A lot of people are retired. They don't get a chance like I've got. Blessing, you know? So that's one of the things that I got to look back at retrospect and say, my God, to come to this stage in my life is I would never imagine, you know, going this way. When I look at other people and other celebrities, and some of that was short term.
Yeah.
You know, people that had one hit record. I mean, I've never had the enormous hits like Elton John or somebody like that, but I have longevity.
Dude, 50, I'm looking at your first record here, 1968, 53 years here, man. We're still talking to Joe Bataan, Mr. New York Latin Soul.
And then, so that has got to be one of the prizes in my life. But it's been very difficult, you know.
Any like post-pandemic shows planned or talk coming up?
Yeah. As a matter of fact, I start in July 24th. I'll be at Carson City, California. At a concert there with Blue Magic, Rolls Royce, Willie G, Evelyn Champagne King, a big group there. And then in August, I'll be at Stevens Steakhouse in Commerce, California. In September, I'll be at the 5 Points Amphitheater with Cheek and Chong.
That's cool.
And then I think October, I'll be at the Greek Theater with War.
Oh, that's awesome, man.
Yeah. So
that's going to be a good show.
Yeah. So they asked me to come to England, but I haven't agreed yet until I know that everything is safe.
Yeah, it's hard to get back. I think they have quarantines there or something like that right now still.
Yeah, it's a little bit. It's bad enough that we got to try to go through what we got to do here in the States. So venturing off overseas before we know the situation might be too reckless at this time.
Yeah. Well, man, we're gonna leave in 1 second. Any final words of wisdom?
Yes. I used to tell them spirit, health, and knowledge. You have to have something in your life that you believe in. And there's nothing more primary than the big boss himself. Spiritually can guide you through your life. Your health, you got to take care of your temple and your body, because without that, you won't be able to achieve all the other things that you want to do. And knowledge is criminal, to go through life and not learn something every day, right? That's what I put as a challenge to me. Every day I must learn something new. And you should make it a point in your life that you follow that type of habit. Don't be stagnant in anything you do. Always keep your mind open for new knowledge and wisdom, but never forget those 3 ingredients, because they will spell success: spirit, health, and knowledge.
I like that, brother. You could tell you're a well-read guy, right? You must read a lot.
I don't know about that.
No, you could tell when you're talking to somebody that they read a lot, because they just, the words they use. And, I thought that like 2 questions into this, I'm like, wow, this guy's pretty smart. Man, I can't thank you enough. It's been a real privilege. Do you still exercise or anything? You're pretty fit.
Not as much as I would want to, but I am pretty busy. I'm a guy that gets up at 1 o'clock in the morning. And I found out that when you get my age, you find out you start doing those things, And it's very relaxing because nobody bothers me. So like from 1 to 8 o'clock, I can go on the internet. I'm in touch with overseas, the time difference.
Right.
Or I can do what I have to do on the internet with Twitter, whatever I have to do with my business. And then after that, then it's Grandpa Joe. Got to take the kids to school, the grandkids. Pick them up, make sure everybody's all right. Then I got to do my wife's baking, anything she needs from Home Depot or whatever that. and then life goes on, I relish watching the Knicks, even though they got blown out now.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
I know.
But of course, it's still the baseball season, but we got to hope that the Yankees come around.
Yeah, man.
And that's basically it, Life is good.
Hang on 1 second. I just thank you again very much. It's a real privilege and a pleasure to talk to you, man. Thanks for 50 years plus of great music, and for all the contributions and everything you've done musically, man. And thanks for being such a cool guy to talk to, and so open and sharing all your stories so candidly, man. I really appreciate you for doing that, man.
Thank you so much. Anybody want to reach me, they can reach me on Facebook, on Messenger,
Facebook and Twitter.
Yeah.
Facebook and Twitter. Also look forward to Joe's book called Streetology, right?
Right, Streetology.
Streetology. And let me know when that comes out.
I will.
That would be really cool. I'd like to. Yeah, man, that'd be very cool. And also, oh, you're welcome, man. Hang on 1 second. If you're not familiar with Joe's music, it's Joe Bataan, Bataan, and his music is available everywhere like you normally listen to music. And I would really encourage everybody to go check him out. That Central Park show he talked about, watch his performance. Just, if nothing else, watch Gypsy Woman, man. The guy's just, man, you just having so much fun up there. And that, as a listener, that connection that comes across right away, man. It's really enjoyable to watch you having fun. Thank you, man. Hang on 1 second, Joe. Everybody, thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this, please share it on your social media channels. We appreciate your support. Thanks again, Joe Rivera. Thanks so much for Joe Bataan for spending all this time with us and for sharing so much knowledge. And I like your message, man. Spirit, health, and knowledge. And most important, remember that happiness is a choice. So choose wisely. Be nice, go play your guitar, and have fun. Till next time, peace and love, everybody. I am out. Brother, thank you for everything, Joe.
Okay, thank you.